Education was the path for me to transcend from growing up in literally a three-room shack with no running water to leading a couple of Fortune 500 companies and living a life I describe as a life of adventure still today. Every day is a new adventure. But it all came back to the transformative power of education. So this is my tool to give back and help others understand that in this life, on this beautiful planet and this amazing country we live in, that anything is possible if we learn to learn.
Welcome to Learning from Leaders, a podcast from Southwestern Medical Foundation where we dive into a world of wisdom, mentorship, and innovation, exploring the insights and life lessons of seasoned community and business leaders. I'm Michael McMahon, President and CEO of Southwestern Medical Foundation. I invite you to subscribe now and join us on this empowering journey of growth and leadership. Now, let's learn from the best and drive meaningful change together.
Welcome back to Learning from Leaders. Today, we're excited to have Jim Keys with us, a transformational leader whose career has had significant impact on business and pop culture here in America. Jim Keys has redefined leadership across industries, from steering 7-Eleven to innovative growth to navigating Blockbuster through unprecedented technological shifts. Today, he's channeling his passion for education into inspiring future leaders. Jim brings a wealth of experience on leadership. Jim, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
So first, we'd love to talk about your book, which is sitting right here. Education is Freedom, the Future is in Your Hands. Can you talk about what specific experiences in your life and your career led you to write the book?
It's a pretty easy story. The book really is my life. Education was the path for me to transcend from growing up in literally a three-room shack with no running water to leading a couple of Fortune 500 companies and living a life I describe as a life of adventure still today. Every day is a new adventure. But it all came back to the transformative power of education. So this is my tool to give back and help others understand that in this life, on this beautiful planet and this amazing country we live in, that anything is possible if we learn to learn.
Absolutely. Could you give us a glimpse into some of the key themes that you present throughout the book that you're really trying to kind of just enlighten future leaders on?
Sure. The first is, and one of the most important is the importance of embracing change. And we can talk about the many examples that I've had throughout my career of change in a corporate environment, a change in a personal environment. And as humans, we naturally resist change. Fear creeps in. We have reluctance to embrace things that are new. And yet change is generally leads to something good, depending on our response to it. So what I've discovered is it's not the change, it's how we respond to it that makes all the difference in the world. And the message of my book is that change is manageable with confidence, and confidence comes from learning. So it all ties together that the more we can learn, the more confidence we'll have, and the more we can embrace change and move through this life without reacting, but instead responding in a more favorable and proactive way.
Absolutely. Could you tell us a little bit about just your upbringing and your path towards this incredible career that you've had, and perhaps how education has played a role in all of that?
Yeah, it's, growing up, I mentioned three-room shack with no running water, right? It was, for a kid, that was actually an adventure. It was kind of like camping. I thought it was just fine. My mom didn't think so, so she left when I was like 5 years old, and I had this whole series of, call it catastrophic things happen, from parents' divorce to my father became ill, and they ended up condemning our little home that we had. So I had a very disruptive childhood. And yet, when I look back on it, I realized that adversity that I faced as a kid is my superpower today, because I can deal with any change. What are they going to do? Take my house? They did already. I've been through that. But it's a wonderful blessing in a way to be able to go to young people especially, and to be able to say that your adversity can end up being a strength, an advantage, because it built in me a sense of resilience, a sense of empowerment to be able to take my life in my own hands at a very young age. And it turned into the opportunity ultimately to transform my life on my own. The subtitle, I'll leave you with the subtitle of my book, which I think sums it up, is "The future is in your hands." And so in spite of all these challenges and disruptions I had as a kid, I recognized the future was in my hands. It was up to me.
Absolutely. You've got agency.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us a little bit more about some of the early roles that you had in your career. Was there a moment in your early career that you really felt was like a breakthrough moment or role?
So many things that happened. First of all, education was the thing that opened doors for me. So I found myself at undergraduate school, then graduate school, and a chance to go work in a major oil company. I started with Gulf Oil. And I thought, wow, I'm on top of the world. This is amazing. How did I get to the point I can work for a major oil company? I came to Texas, fell in love with Texas, as you might imagine. But then all of a sudden, Gulf merged with Chevron. The oil industry was going through some very challenging times back in the late 80s. And all of a sudden, my career was disrupted again. Now what? With big merger. And my career had been on a fast track. Now it was uncertain. But that change and that crisis at the time opened up a new door and another opportunity with 7-Eleven, because they had just acquired an oil company. So I get to 7-Eleven and I thought, boy, I'm on top of the world again. And the company did a leveraged buyout in 1987, put a $4 billion of debt on the company at 17% interest, and then had to file for bankruptcy. Once again, my career, I thought, was on this fast track and things were fabulous, but crisis occurred. Again, change, and thankfully, because of my ability to deal with change and what I like to call a little bit of relentless positivity, I was able to say, I will find the silver lining in this cloud. And it was John Thompson, actually, the son of the founder of the company, of 7-Eleven, who had given me this pivotal advice at that critical time of change, because I was not sure if I should leave the company. You want me to share what he said?
Please.
It's a great story. He said, I went to him and I said, John, should I stay with the company, or should I go? I'm early in my career. People are saying 7-Eleven's going to go away. And he told me the story of his dad in 1927 starting Oak Cliff, Texas, 12th Street. They had an ice house. It was called the Southland Ice Company. And they sold blocks of ice to people for their ice box.
Right.
And in 1929, someone invented something called a Frigidaire. Imagine what that does to your business. You sell ice for an ice box. Now you plug it in, it's automatic.
Yeah.
So his advice to me was, he said that his uncle Johnny Green, got on the dock and asked people what they wanted. And they said, we don't come for the ice. We come for the convenience of ice. Yeah. So he said, we then transformed. We changed. We embraced change. And he said that transformed us from an ice company to a convenience company. And he said, Jim, it's 1991 at the time. He said, we're selling beer and soft drinks and cigarettes. And he said, we forgot that our business is convenience. And so your job, should you choose to stay, find things that people need more conveniently. And he said, the one thing I can assure you, convenience will never go away. So if you can embrace change, your career will be fine.
It's amazing advice.
Isn't that amazing? I know. And he was so right, because I did. And we put ATMs in every store. We brought fresh food into the stores. We did all kinds of innovative new products. And 7-Eleven today has 80,000 stores worldwide.
It's incredible. Could you tell us a little bit more about how, throughout your course of leading 7-Eleven, how you were thinking about just being a great leader at different points of evolution in the company?
What I learned most importantly is that leading is all about learning. We hear all of these leadership by this or leadership, servant leadership, and all these great leadership advice books and programs and things like that. What I discovered is leadership is about change. In fact, in my book, I coined the expression change equals opportunity. Ironically, the CEO acronym, I think, stands as much for change equals opportunity as it does chief executive officer. Because it does, if you think about it. And so in order to lead and in order to embrace change, you as a leader have to be adaptable too, and be resilient and be able to recognize that different circumstances require a different form of leadership.
Right. So you were also at Blockbuster at a really pivotal time of change in the company, but also just in the market and how technology was playing a role in really influencing the business. Could you talk about what that whole experience is like?
Quite challenging. Talk about change.
Yeah.
I had a tsunami of change at Blockbuster. Everything from the oncoming trend toward digital. We had a company like Redbox putting vending machines. So we had old change, new change, all of which was actually why I joined Blockbuster, because I recognized from my 7-Eleven experience that change does equal opportunity. And if I could help Blockbuster lead it through this period of change, that'd be a tremendous opportunity. Well, I started down that path. First thing I did was to acquire a streaming video company called MovieLink from the studios. We renamed it Blockbuster On Demand. Blockbuster already had a program called Total Access, where they had stores, DVDs by mail. We then added kiosks to compete with Redbox. We added Blockbuster On Demand, so we had true total access. And you might think, well, wow, what a great competitive advantage versus someone like Netflix. Well, then in September of 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed and the whole financial world fell apart for a period of time. What people forget is that Blockbuster had $1 billion of debt going into that crisis. And we had, as many companies did, a very difficult time getting that debt refinanced. Ultimately, it forced us to restructure the company. But still, we stayed the course, didn't allow it to be liquidated because that was a risk at the time. And by staying the course, we were successful in taking it through a restructuring and selling the company to Dish Network to be able to give the Blockbuster brand another chance of success.
Right. Could you talk about, as you reflect on that time, what were the things that you think went really well, were great decisions, and are there things that you think now perhaps you would have done differently?
Yeah, one of the best decisions, I think, was the acquisition of the streaming company called MovieLink. We had new releases, which is something Netflix still doesn't have. They have a lot of older movies, and then they create their own content. But you can't find the new Top Gun on Netflix. We did. We had all of the new releases digitized, ready to go. So that was a good thing. The bad thing is, and I wish I had this decision to do over, but I didn't have a crystal ball. Wish I had.
That would be nice.
It would have been great, I know. I wish I had refinanced the company from day one when we took it over. My initial volley to go to Blockbuster was to acquire the company, partner with private equity, take it private, refinance the debt. And had we done that, we would have refinanced both the existing debt and the new debt to take it private at a very comfortable interest rate, and probably never would have looked back. We would have been fine through the transition. So we missed that opportunity. But again, it's not the change that matters. It's your response to the change. We were able to survive, keep the company intact, and get it sold. So I wish I had it to do over again, but in hindsight, I think we did the best we could at the time.
Absolutely. So after that, you found yourself as CEO of Wild Oats Marketplace with Fresh and Easy Neighborhood Marketplace. Could you tell us a little bit about how you arrived at those opportunities?
I did. It was an interesting time because Whole Foods had just acquired the brand Wild Oats, and they were not allowed to keep. They were allowed to buy the stores, but not the trademark. And at the time, Wild Oats and Whole Foods were the two largest organic food brands in the business. So it was a great opportunity. I thought I had been approached to partner with the person who bought the Wild Oats brand and said, hey, is there something you could do with this? So my idea was perhaps we could create a 7-Eleven meets Whole Foods kind of convenient market with natural and organic foods. Great idea, right? So that's what we set out to accomplish. We first, though, needed scale. Convenience stores work on scale. There's so many 7-Elevens, you have a better buying power. You have the same buying power as Walmart, even though you have smaller stores, but you have so many of them that you have leverage, right? Well, with a brand new brand, we had no leverage. So I took the idea to Walmart and said, perhaps we'll create a line of organic foods for you, Walmart, and we'll call it Wild Oats. We'll brand it. We'll make it available to all Walmart stores. They agreed, started to roll it out, took off, was going great. We also then had a chance now we've got a line of products, branded Wild Oats, that we can put in our own stores. We had a chance to acquire a chain of stores in California that were created by a company called Tesco, one of the largest retailers in Europe. And Tesco wanted to build this fresh, better for you store, but their brand was called Fresh and Easy. Our idea was we'll take on these stores, we'll then rebrand them Wild Oats, and we'll now have this small convenience store with the Wild Oats brand, fresh and organic foods. We were well on our way. Then another disruption occurred. Walmart changed their entire senior management staff, brought in a new management team. They decided that they were going to, instead of branding the whole store with Wild Oats products, they were going to change it to Great Value Organic, which they did. And that, of course, took away our competitive advantage on cost of goods. And we decided then to shut the stores down because we didn't now have that buying power that we would have had through Walmart. So the way I describe it is like this. I've had 3 major at-bats. One was a home run, and then I had 2 long flyouts. But I like to use the quote that Nelson Mandela gave. Here's a guy that was locked up for over 20 years, came out during that period, studied law, came out. He was president of the country of South Africa, right? Mandela said, I never lose. I win or I learn. So I like to look at it that way. I've had a couple of fabulous experiences and opportunities, and I don't see any of them as losses, but I see them as tremendous learning experiences, both
Absolutely.
the good and the bad.
So I'm very curious, when you were at kind of the beginning of taking on a major new opportunity, like each of these experiences we've talked about, what is most exciting to you? When you're at the beginning of kind of putting a strategy together, you've entered these businesses at various points of their growth trajectories. What's most exciting to you about that time period?
I love the opportunity to vision what could be rather than what is. I love to look forward into the future. And I think some of this comes from, I'm a little weird in that I'm an artist. I paint, I write music, I do all these other things. And so I've got this little bit of an odd balance of right brain, left brain thing going. I can be as technical as anyone, but I can also vision and dream. And that is what I get most excited about when I see a new company opportunity. I see it as a piece of art. It's a lump of clay that may be in a existing shape, but it's a free range opportunity to create something completely new out of that clay. And that's I get excited about, and being able to share that vision with others.
What have you been most proud of throughout your career?
Most proud, I think, has been the recognition that your role as a chief executive officer, especially in a very large Fortune 500 company, is a privilege that gives you a platform from which to do good things for society. And I know it sounds crazy, but
Not at all.
well, you don't think of CEOs that way, generally. You think of CEOs as being, they teach us in business school, shareholder value. But I learned very early on, and part of this was the inspiration of the leaders at 7-Eleven. You remember the Thompson family and their support of MDA and many other things they've done in the community. I learned early on in my career that shareholder value and social good are not mutually exclusive. You can really do wonderful things in society, in the communities that you're in, and also find that those things will help you actually make money.
Absolutely.
And that's a beautiful balance once you figure that out.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've kind of always had this view of how you want to lead and have chosen to lead, or is that something that has evolved over time?
I think it's evolved. I've learned a lot about how to do this. I was inspired early on by the leadership of my predecessors at 7-Eleven. But then I'll share one story. The creation of this nonprofit that is called Education is Freedom came from a time when we were encouraged to cut our philanthropic budget. We were going through some hard times at 7-Eleven. And we weren't giving that much money anyway, but it was under a lot of pressure. And I thought at the time, I believe I was chief financial officer at the time, maybe chief operating officer. I thought, is there a way I could generate a return on investment? I have to justify every other dollar I spend, advertising money, employee cost. Why can't I find a philanthropic cause that I can measure positive results for the shareholder? And we stepped back from that challenge and said, well, what are our needs? Our needs are employees, educated employees, a diverse workforce to reflect the customer base that we had. What if we go into public schools and grow our own future employees by inspiring them to stay on a track to finish high school and go on to college? That then led to the creation of the Education is Freedom Foundation. We put it into public schools, advise young people, and give them an opportunity for success, show them the pathway to a job.
Absolutely. And we know Education is Freedom has been just done incredible work, made an impact in so many lives. Could you just share kind of some of the biggest success stories in your view?
It has the high-level success stories, and in Dallas alone, in the public schools that we've been in, we've had over 500,000 young people come through the program, and I think we're probably pushing $1 billion worth of not direct scholarship support, but finding or giving scholarship support to young people. In many cases, just helping them find scholarship opportunities. But the best stories are those individual ones. We have a young man right here in Dallas, Texas, named Adon Gonzalez, who came through this program. I actually referenced him in the book, but I have hundreds of these stories. Adon went to school at Adamson High School here in Dallas, came from very humble beginnings, was a tough kid in school, but we channeled his energies by being part of the Education is Freedom Foundation, and he introduced him to the idea that he could do anything he wanted if he would apply himself to education. He then not only succeeded at Adamson, he went on to Georgetown University.
Wow.
Joined the boxing team, brought them a national championship.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Got out of there, went on to Harvard, got a second master's degree at Columbia, came back to Dallas, taught public school here in Dallas. And then most recently, he was one of the White House Fellows, helping the Department of Education. Yeah, it's a beautiful story of what can be.
Absolutely.
With the power of inspiration, right?
Yeah. So, Jim, could you tell us what some of the most important messages that you were trying to get across in Education is Freedom is? Sure.
What I've captured in the book, or tried to capture, is what I call a hierarchy of success. I've spoken about the importance of change, but I build, if you will, a triangle and try to envision a triangle with the foundation of this, or pyramid, if you will, being character. And that character is something I characterize for young people especially as our brand. It's not only what we look like. Think of a product. I'm an old retailer. Product, what does a product look like on the outside? But what's most important is what's inside, right? The ingredients: integrity, humility, gratitude, compassion. So with that foundation, then how do you succeed? Well, you can't do it alone. So cultural literacy is the next element, the next layer of that pyramid, if you will. in that we're surrounded by people different from us. So how do we learn from every individual that we encounter and grow from them, from a cultural literacy of their differences that now become part of ours? Then the next, of course, is that helps us collaborate because we can't do it ourselves. So collaboration and learning to work together is another big element of this process. Then, of course, that leads to fundamental how to learn elements like in engaging your creativity or being curious or having critical thinking. And all of that leads to the ability to embrace change, to have confidence, have clarity of communications. That characterizes those tiers of that pyramid I call the hierarchy of success. And if I can impart that knowledge to young people, they can use it in their academic life. And it also blends into their professional life.
In all parts of life, I imagine.
All parts of life, to give you unlimited opportunity and hopefully make you a better citizen. Right?
Yeah. Could you talk about how just, our workforce needs in society and here in Texas are evolving? How can our education system do better to really meet those needs?
Thank you for asking. I am trying to advance, and part of the reason for the books, I'm trying to advance what I call the big idea, the moonshot for education. Our current education system was built over 100 years ago by the business community. The Rockefellers and others said, we need an educated workforce. So everything about our public education system is standardized. We were mass producing an educated workforce for the factories, or for the machine age, if you will. And that worked for 100 years. And yet today, we're now in the information age.
Right.
We have access to technology that has transformed retail, has transformed media, has transformed space, commercial space, right? We're not yet embracing that technology as a transformative tool for education. So here's the way I characterize it. We have an opportunity today to build what I would call the internet of EdTech. So a sort of walled-in, safe universe for students to have access to everything from Google Classroom to LinkedIn Learning to Khan Academy to UT Southwestern experiences. We can take that young person right into an operating room in their biology class and
Incredible.
have it big screen, right? To inspire them, to show them what's possible. We can take them into space with the power of technology. So my challenge is for the business community to step up and to say, like 100 years ago, we have a supply and demand problem. We have a demand, the business community has a demand for an educated workforce. We have a supply pipeline that is underdeveloped. If this was chips, we'd be building factories. So instead, let's step up and build the tools necessary for transformative learning using AI and all the other tools at our fingertips to change the way we teach and learn.
Absolutely. What do you think would be the biggest needle mover to get the business community to kind of raise their hands and say, yes, we want to invest in this?
This is why I've been talking about it now in business terms, because we're busy. CEOs are busy. They've got a job. They've got a company to run, and they don't stop and think about, how do I have my human resources needs met for the next 500 years or the next 50 years? So what I've been trying to do is put it in business terms. We as business people understand supply and demand. So if I can paint the picture of a demand crisis, and I believe there is, in the medical industry, 259,000, your viewers will probably know this number better than me, physicians in the United States. Something like 30% are foreign-born. Now, that's a good thing. It brings in a lot of diversity and diverse thinking. But you think about, what about our pipeline of educated people from this country that are coming in and not going on to med school? So I think that's a leading indicator of what's happening across the board, that we have people sitting, especially in urban America or in poverty situations, saying there's no opportunity, yet we have a massive demand for an educated workforce. So how do we build that bridge? And that's my challenge to corporations, to say, if you see this as a supply and demand, and the most valuable resource in any company is the human resource, let's build that supply of the human resource together.
Yeah, it's a good case. Okay, so I do want to circle back briefly. You mentioned your many kind of passions outside of your career, from music to art. To my understanding, you've also been a pilot. Tell us about how you've kind of gotten into some of these interests. Have you always been interested in these things? Have you picked them up over the course of your life? Tell us more.
Well, the pilot thing came from wanting to be an astronaut. I was a product of the Apollo and Gemini generation, and was at Boy Scout camp when Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. So I wanted to be an astronaut, and unfortunately, when it came time to go to college, and then beyond, it was just post-Vietnam War era, and they were giving furloughs to all of the pilots. So I said, well, it may not be a good career choice, but I did decide to be a pilot, and that was became my avocation, and I started flying. It's another example of how education is freedom, because I still train today. I have to. For the privilege of flying in the aircraft that I fly, I have to go back into a simulator once a year, spend 3 days letting them try to kill me, so that I'm actually reprogramming my brain to avoid fear, there's such a lesson there for everything that we do, because fear ends up being that obstacle to learning. And I get retrained as a pilot on an annual basis at least, and then I train during the year as well, so that in an emergency, I don't have time to fear. I immediately reach for, in an emergency, I'll reach for my emergency procedures checklist, which basically represents knowledge. I have step 1 through step 5, what I have to do to solve that emergency. And while I'm doing that, I have no room for fear. And so that's why part of the reason I love to fly, apart from the fact that it's just a fun thing to do, and
Right.
it's amazing.
I imagine
beautiful.
that mentality, that approach has been very useful in your business leadership as well.
It carries over into so many things that I use it as an example. I use it in the book as an example, and when I'm doing lectures, especially talking to young people, that fear is one of our biggest obstacles. Whether it's professional in your career, you're going into a boardroom and you freeze. But the solution for fear is knowledge.
Right.
It's when we're kids and we get scared of the dark, we turn on the light. And that's a great metaphor for knowledge. Once you turn that light on, you look around and there's nothing to be afraid of. And that's what knowledge can do for us. That knowledge will help us overcome fear. As a pilot, I turn to knowledge. I don't let fear take over. And that same principle applies to everything else we do. And if we can get young people especially to recognize you can do anything that you want to do with knowledge and overcoming fear.
Right. So I'd love to hear about the music and art side as well. Like, what kind of music do you write? Do you compose? Do you play? And on the art side as well?
Yeah, well, the music side, I write because I'm a terrible musician. So if you write your own music, then no one knows if you make a mistake.
That's a good point.
Right?
What kind of genre do you fall in?
I like a little bit of everything. I like a little bit of folk music and country music and jazz and classical, of course. And I'm not trained sufficiently to be a good classical musician, but I do like to listen to it. And I had the privilege of serving as chairman of the Dallas Symphony at one point. So music's always been a big part of my life, but it's a form of expression. And what music and painting did for me is it helped me overcome that fear, because we're all creative. One of my favorite expressions, Einstein said, intelligence or creativity is intelligence having fun. And that's exactly what it is. So when I play the piano or I paint, I don't learn to play. And if you heard me play, you'd say, yeah, you didn't learn it. No, it's an important difference. I play to learn. Because every time I sit down at the keyboard, I learn something new. Every time I pick up a paintbrush, I learn something new. And it's that having fun with learning that creativity is all about.
Absolutely. So I briefly want to go back. Earlier you mentioned, I was really interested in kind of the left brain, right brain scenario that you mentioned, and bringing back kind of the education piece. Like, what is the importance to you of making sure that our students are exposed to both the STEM side and the arts and to creativity and all of that to really kind of bring together this combined knowledge and experience and creativity with also the ability to analyze well and all of that?
Yeah, I think it's especially critical today in this world of information and the information age coming. None of us know the power of AI and what will happen. There's all kinds of positive that will come out. I think it's going to be a fabulous tool for teaching and learning. But there are a lot of things that people are afraid of, losing jobs being taken away, et cetera. To me, the advantage of this wave of AI coming is it will force us as humans to recognize that humans we're not using all of the capacity that we have for our brain. And then in this age of AI being able to go very deep, I think it's going to be even more important for humans to go very broad and have a much broader base of learning and use more of our human capability. That's where art comes in. That's where the right side of our brain, I think, comes in, to be able to find that balance between technical skills and humanity and those things that make us love and inspire us and see beauty. So that's why I think the future is very bright if we recognize the power of of using our minds in a different way.
Absolutely. So, Jim, you mentioned in your book around how our founding fathers have said education is really fundamental to a working and thriving democracy. Of course, we see in the news every day around just this unrest, lots of competing views. Could you tell us more about your thoughts on this?
Sure. It literally goes back to Jefferson and Alexis de Tocqueville coming over from France and studying our democratic system. And they pointed out the critical importance of knowledge and education to a working democracy. And today, if you think about it, if you step back from this, in fact, on my book, there's by design a picture of the globe, and that is to communicate the importance of perspective, because perspective is what we lose when we're overcome by fear. What causes fear? Well, if we think about the massive amount of information that we have access to with social media and television and press and all this, there's so much perception that can be caused, and perception can cause fear. Well, this is the advantage of the human mind, that we can overcome fear with knowledge. And if we step back from all of these political issues that we face that cause this huge divide in society today, not just in the United States, by the way, this is a phenomenon worldwide. But as humans, it's really up to us. And that's why the book's subtitle, The Future is in Our Hands, is critically important. For us to use our critical thinking, our ability to recognize change is going to occur, and our ability to overcome fear with knowledge. If we can do that, we're going to be a lot happier. And we're going to find that it's easier to collaborate and work cross-aisle.
Absolutely.
And actually accomplish great things. They have common ground. Yes, exactly. So I'll leave you with one thing. One of the things I point to, I try to communicate this idea that knowledge is so important in overcoming fear. I went back to the ancient philosophers, and Enid Rushta was an Andalusian philosopher who talked about ignorance leading to fear, fear leading to anger, anger leading to violence. It's a very negative cycle. Yoda, because people like to hear Yoda
of course.
more than an ancient philosopher, right? Yoda teaching Luke the power of the Force and the power of knowledge said, with knowledge and the Force, good metaphor for faith, you eliminate fear. And with eliminating fear, you create understanding, and understanding leads to hope, and hope leads to peace. it's a much, much more effective cycle for humanity to embrace this cycle of knowledge, understanding, and hope versus ignorance and fear. The power of education. It's literally why I titled the book, Education is Freedom.
We need more people thinking with that loop.
We hope. We hope. That's my objective.
Beyond your role with Education is Freedom, you've had many civic engagements here in Dallas, including here at the Southwestern Medical Foundation. Can you tell us how you got involved, why it's important to you, and what role you've played?
Yeah, I've followed the progress of UT Southwestern for many years. In fact, when I remember first coming to Dallas, the challenge was that Dallas needed a world-class medical school, medical research facility here in Dallas. We have one now, and I've been proud to be part of this evolution of UT Southwestern, and it's phenomenal growth as an institution over these last 20 or 30 years. It's been amazing, and so many good things are coming from this. The Brain Health Center here and the focus, so critically important. And all of this ties back to really the mission that I'm on, emphasizing the power of knowledge. The research that's happening here feeds right back into the idea that knowledge eliminates fear. And whether it's your physical state or your mental state or the state of society, what you're doing here at UT Southwestern is in so many ways the cure for all of the issues, personal and societal.
Absolutely. Well, Dallas, I think everyone here would say we are so lucky to have this institution here in our backyards.
Absolutely. It's a gem.
Absolutely. What is your biggest piece of advice that you like to share with either students or young leaders who are at the beginning of their career?
I like to use this. I go back to this fear thing as a thing I just discovered recently, that in the Bible, the most commonly repeated phrase is "do not be afraid." And I wish someone had told me that when I was in school, because if I could have overcome those natural fears, we all have them. I still do. We have that imposter person on our shoulder saying we're not smart enough or good enough.
Right.
I probably did a better job of many in overcoming that. But I do think that that's one of the biggest things that we can achieve as a young person, to say anything is possible. The combination of faith and knowledge. There was a Pope, Pope John Paul II, in I think 1998, wrote a treatise on this combination of faith and knowledge, and he said something I was surprised to hear a religious leader say, that it wasn't just faith. It was a balance of faith and knowledge that were two wings that would elevate the human spirit to seek the truth.
It's really interesting.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's so true, because that combination, it's faith that lets us overcome fear. And that combination of I can learn anything and therefore not be afraid can really propel us.
Absolutely. So we have a question that we always ask our guests on Learning from Leaders, which is, who has been the biggest or one of the biggest mentors or role models that you've had in your life that has helped shape some part of your career?
I've learned from so many people. Of course, I mentioned John Thompson, and the advantage of having people take you under their wing and coach you and guide you along the way. I've had so many. Ray Hunt here in Dallas as a CEO, young CEO. He was such a good mentor in so many ways. But I've also learned from those who weren't great leaders. You can find mentors in any shape and form, good and bad.
Right.
So you can learn as much from those who perhaps stumble and fall as those who are inspirational leaders, as long as you keep learning.
Absolutely. It's really good advice. So to wrap things up, we do have a few rapid fire questions. So these are just first thing that comes to mind. Okay, so first is, what book are you reading right now?
Education is Freedom, of course. No.
Perfect.
No, I am reading now a Sal Khan book on the power of AI in education. It makes sense.
Okay. What do you love most about Dallas or Texas?
Can-do spirit. I love Texas, and Dallas is, to me, the heart of Texas. and our ability to accomplish anything in this community. There's an infectious spirit of positivity here. I mentioned relentless positivity. Dallas embodies that. We can do anything here. The bigger the idea, better it is.
Absolutely. Who is your favorite musician at the moment?
I have too many friends that are musicians. I couldn't pick one. I'd make somebody very upset at me. No, I actually have a very eclectic taste across all forms, all genres of music. So I actually don't have a favorite. I love it all.
Is there a concert or any sort of live performance that you've enjoyed recently?
Andrea Bocelli. Yeah, I mean, how do you not become inspired? And especially when he teams up. I now love it when he teams up with his son or his daughter. It's just beautiful. Yeah.
That's amazing. What is your favorite place that you fly to?
Again, it's one of those things. I love flying. I love flying anywhere. So it's the beauty of flying is the advantage of being able to go anywhere. So I don't have really a favorite destination. I like to fly to new destinations, which become my next favorite one.
Yeah. Where have you gone most recently?
Most recently, I did a tour of North Carolina to NASA. I had a chance to land on the shuttle strip at NASA.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Oh,
what was that
awful.
like?
That was amazing fun. It was Charlie Duke, the lunar module pilot for Apollo 16, offered an opportunity to film my book in zero gravity.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, who gets to do stuff like
That's
that, right?
incredible.
Remember I said I led a life of adventure? Yeah. So I flew to North Carolina, picked up Charlie, put him in the right seat. Since I had General Duke with me, we contacted NASA and said, could we land on the shuttle strip? That's where we're going to do the zero-G flight from. And they don't let just anyone land on the shuttle strip down there. 15,000-foot runway.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was fun. And so sure enough, we got to land. They brought out the water cannons for us because Charlie Duke was with us. And it was just a beautiful experience. So fun to have him as your co-pilot.
What an incredible experience.
Yeah, it's great. It's great fun. And he was the voice of Apollo 11. He was mission control. He was the person that said when they landed, we were all here in mission control holding our breath.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is
and
surreal.
So as we're flying along, he's handling the radios because he's obviously a pilot. So he's talking to air traffic control. And I'm sitting there flying thinking, here's a guy in a darkened room in air traffic control, and he's communicating with a pilot at 40,000 feet. He has no idea he's talking to Charlie Duke.
Oh my God.
Isn't that fun?
I'm sure that person had fun learning that later.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Okay, I have one more question for you, which is what is the most interesting or unexpected thing that you've learned recently?
So as you know, I'm always learning, and I'm learning new tools, and I've learned now, we've had ChatGPT in the past, but I've learned that you can take now AI to another level in being able to truly analyze topics and help craft a vision. And so I am now using an AI tool to be able to help craft this vision of the future of education. Because I'm having trouble communicating the idea of an internet of ed tech that will change the world. But with the power of AI, I'm getting examples. I'm getting painting a live picture of what's possible in the transformation of human learning powered by machine learning.
That is fascinating. Okay, well, Jim, thank you so much for being here. It was such an honor to have you on the podcast. And to our Learning from Leaders listeners, if you want to learn more, please check out Jim's book, Education is Freedom. We'll have the link in the description. And don't forget to follow our show to learn more inspiring leadership stories. So we will see you next time on Learning from Leaders.
Thanks for listening to Learning from Leaders. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to subscribe now for monthly episode drops so that you can continue to learn from experienced business and community leaders to help you drive meaningful change in your community.